Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Mishnah Yomi continues for the first day of November, which is the seventh day of Cheshvan. We are in the first parak of Bikkurim on Mishnah Zayin. Hifrish Bikurav. He separated out his Bikkurim from his field, Machar Sadehu, and then he sold his field. Now, it sounds like he was intending to sell his field, because if he had separated Bikkurim and then his field dried up, well, that's a case we had in the Mishnah yesterday. So Mevi ve'eno kore. He has to bring these bikurim, but he can't be kore because he doesn't own the land anymore that they came from. V'hasheni, and the second, referring to the second man in the situation, the buyer of the field, me'oto hamin eno mevi, from that same species that the first owner, the prior owner, had separated, he doesn't bring, because it sounds like that species is yotze. Mimin acher, if there's another species on that field, another one of the 7 species that the first owner did not separate, maybe v'koy, then the second owner can bring that and even recite the passage, because after all, he is the landowner now. Rabbi Yehuda Omer af me'oto hamin mevi v'kore. Rita says even that same species that the first owner had separated, the second owner can bring bikurim and bikore, can read the parsha. Rabbi Yehuda holds if there were 2 owners, both of them are allowed to bring. But the partner says the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Mishnah Chayet Hifrish Bikurav. He separated his bikurim. Nivzazu, but Nebuch, they were plundered. Namaku, or they spoiled, they rotted. Nignavu, or they were stolen. Plundered is like, the Crusades came through, or like an army came through. And stolen is, of course, like secretive and besetter. Ovdu, they were lost. Oshnitmu, or they became tamei. Maybe acherim tachteim ve'eno kore. So no, he has to bring replacement bikurim in place of the first. Now maybe they're not going to be quite as gishmak as the very first and best, but you pick the second best. You try to do what you can, even if you couldn't do it perfectly, as they famously say. And it's probably in the Gemara somewhere on both sides. They famously say, perfect is the enemy of good enough. Of course, you want second best here because you bring a replacement bikurim. But ain't no kore, so he doesn't bikure because the originals were lost. Hashniyim, and the second set, the replacements, einam chayavin leim chumish. He's not chayav the 1/5. Now, the 1/5 we're talking about here is if a non-kohen eats truma, then they have to pay back a 5th extra, like a tax. And that 5th was a 5th of the total, meaning it's 25% of the original. So you're adding on a 5th milavar from the outside, so the total amount increases by 1/5. And since bikurim are like truma and that they're only given to the Kohen and his family, so to this din of chumash would apply. But here these are merely replacements and not the originals, so they would be pater from this. Nitmeu ba'azora, if they got tamei once they were already in the azara, no fits ve'eno kore. He could shake out the basket, dump out the basket, and he does not recite the passage. He doesn't have to bring a replacement in this case because Lamaisa, he's Yotze, he got the fruit, he got the produce into the Azara, so he did his part, but he didn't get to actually do the ceremony yet when they got tamei in the temple. So they can't eat the fruit, but what about the baskets? The Mefarshim say they actually give the basket empty to the Kohen, probably as long as it's not tamei, depending on what the basket's made of. Because there's a pasuk actually says, "V'lokoch Kohen atene miyadecha." The Kohen takes the basket from his hand. So sometimes that's actually totally literal, and sometimes the fruit got tamei in the azara, and all he gets is the basket. Shkoyach rabosai zay gesund.